Many years ago, I conducted the largest neuroscience study in the world, where we used $7 million to peer inside our brains and understand what really goes on in our brains as we fall in love, as I'm picking up my smartphone, as I fall in love with a brand, or, by the way, if I'm very religious. Now, that study later on started to create a framework for how brands are created today. And it's been a fascinating journey since my previous book, Biology, was published talking about that topic. Now, the reason why I'm raising that issue today is because I believe that companies increasingly are losing their sense of purpose in life. Frankly speaking, I'll tell you a story, right? Just to put this into a perspective. So the other day I was at a bank. It was one of the largest banks in the world. I went to 18th floor, and there you had this lovely lady sitting. She was responsible for compliance. And I kind of asked her, do you know, how long time have you been in the bank? And she said, 17 years. And half jokingly, I said to her, so how many rules have you created through these 17 years? And she looked at me with a straight face and she said, 1,279 and still counting. I'm not kidding. That's what she said. And I said, really? Right? So she didn't believe me that I believed her. So she took a Yellow Pages book type of manual, slapped it on my lap, right? Crazy stuff. And I started to flick through this thing here, and she was right. There was a lot of rules in this one here. So halfway through, on page 200 and something, I stopped, and there was a rule. And the rule was saying something like, when you have a contract signed with one of your clients, ensure always to email it, always to post it. And here comes the peak point of this rule, and always make sure you fax it to the client. Do never forget that. And I looked at her and I said, do you have a fax machine? And she said, no, of course I don't have a fax machine. It's in the year 2020. I said, so why do you require people to fax a fax to people who don't have a fax machine? She said, it's not my goal and role in life to kill my own work, my own rules. I'm only creating them. It's up to someone else to get rid of them if they don't make sense anymore. And this is really the situation I'm seeing increasingly across the world. Now, then you could ask yourself, how do you get around a mindset which seems to be completely disconnected from reality? Well, coming back to that study I mentioned for you earlier on, we actually started to spend time figuring out the correlation between powerful brands and religion. And I do know this sounds very controversial, but it was a fascinating assignment, because what we learned was that indeed there is a strong correlation between some of the most powerful brands in the world. And in fact, these ingredients is creating what I believe a powerful framework for how to create brands, which, by the way, is very similar with the concept of religion. In fact, for 2 years, I traveled around the world and interviewed religious leaders to experience and understand what creates a powerful religion. And take a look at this. Now, one of the things we learned was, of course, trust. You don't want to do anything if you don't trust it. But I would claim trust is an outcome of a lot of effort. And then we had evangelism, spreading the word of mouth, right? And we had a clear purpose, storytelling, simple, sense of belonging. Really, really important. Sensory appeal, authenticity, rituals, grandeur, to think big, all of that stuff. Now, I didn't think a lot about this, frankly, for a long time. I was creating brands. We were very successful doing it until one day I realized that it's really, really good to produce a brand for the world. But if you don't get your house in order internally, you actually will be derailing it at some point in time. The veneer will kind of just start to fade, if you get what I mean. And that's the reason why I'm so happy to have my special guest on my show today. Now, this guest, by the way, he joined the company some 34 years ago. That was back, if I can do my math, in 1987. He does have an accent which has a flavor of mine, because as you know, I've lived partly in Sydney over the last couple of years. And certainly this gentleman also have lived there. He's born and raised in Sydney in Australia. Before I tell you more about who he is, take a look at this. Beautiful, right? Amazing stuff. So here's what's interesting about what you just watched right now. WD-40 produces, I guess, a can of oil to stop squeaks, right? Yet the official WD-40 statement at NASDAQ is, and I just looked at their annual report here, is, and I'm trying to paraphrase what they're saying, but they're saying that they see themselves as a global marketing organization dedicated to creating positive, lasting memories by developing and selling products that solve problems in workshops, factories, and homes around the world. Did I get something wrong here? What is this company about? And by the way, the net sales for the first quarter were 124.6 million, and that was an increase of 26% compared to the prior year physical quarter. And then you'll say, okay, this guy obviously running this show is pretty lucky. I would claim he's not, because this is what he's saying. The CEO would talk about market conditions, or typical CEO would talk about market conditions and customer sentiment when they would sort of justify an increase of 26%. Now, this guy, Garry, he explains this by saying, and I'm quoting him, "This tremendous result is due to our tribe's hard work and dedication to delivering products to meet these customers' demand. And I want to thank the tribe for working hard to ensure that customers' orders can be fulfilled. Production lines at our third-party manufacturers are functioning." And if I remember what he said, something like that, customers and the end users can get the products. So this is really the guy we're going to talk about today. This language is highly unusual. And if I should try to just encapsulate this into 50 seconds, I think this video does the trick. Take a look at this.
We call ourselves a tribe, not a team at WD-40 Company. And the reason we do that is tribe is about belonging. Put up your hand in the audience if anyone here has ever left a relationship, a party, or an organization because they feel like they didn't belong. I normally get 100% participation. So the reason we call ourselves a tribe is because people want to belong to something, and tribes have attributes that are so important. And one of the attributes, of course, of a tribe is being responsible or accountable to someone else. So the first place we start with the overall corporate responsibility is to make sure that our vision is clear. Where do we want to go? And when we wake up in the morning, are we enthusiastic about getting there? You would think that seeing we sell a can of oil, our vision might be to stop squeaks. Well, it's not. Our vision is to create memories. We're in the memories business. WD-40's vision is to create positive, lasting memories, solving problems in factories, homes, and workshops of the world. And why are memories so important to us? Because at the end of the day, memories are the only thing we have left.
Let me just remind you that this company is selling oils on cans. I'm pleased to welcome Garry Ridge. He's the CEO and chairman of WD-40, co-author of Helping People Win at Work, a business philosophy called "Don't Mark My Paper, Help Me Get an A." And I'd say a true evangelist and tribe leader. Welcome, Garry, to my show.
G'day, Martin. It's great to be with you. Thank you so much.
And you still have this accent of "good day." I like it. You're not leaving Australia at all, are you?
Well, some of my Aussie mates might disagree with you when I go back and see them. They tend to think I've got a little bit of an American accent now, but Australia will always be my land, and where I live at the moment is my home.
Still call Australia home, right? The Qantas there.
Absolutely.
Now, here's the issue. I see you guys as a religion. And tell me about this whole philosophy. Where does it come from? Now, I know that I'm not sure if this is public knowledge or not, but you were thinking about going into a monastery or something like that when you were younger. And it seems like this whole philosophy has somewhat defined the direction of WD-40 over the last many decades. What is the backstory for doing this?
Well, the Dalai Lama wrote something many years ago, and I read it on a flight from Los Angeles to Sydney, and he said, our purpose in life is to make people happy. If we can't make them happy, at least don't hurt them. And what became really clear to me was in business that we were creating cultures that were hurting people. And that's backed up by the horrible number that 70% of people who go to work around the world today, and probably more, Martin, are either disengaged or actively disengaged. So we had a dream. Here it is. Imagine a place where you go to work every day. You make a contribution to something bigger than yourself. You learn something new. You're protected and set free by a compelling set of values, and you go home happy. Happy people create happy families create happy communities, and happy communities will create a happy world. So our just cause as an organization is to make life better at work and at home. And I see that as being a true purpose in life, is how do we help people get A's instead of marking their papers?
But Garry, if you guys were producing space shuttles, or you were producing the latest Tesla car or something like that, then I could understand that people would buy into this amazing, almost pledge. But you are producing oils in cans. And yes, there's a secret formula around it. Remember, one of my elements in the religious framework is to have secrecy and mystery around it. How do you bring people, the staff, the key people around you, from a mindset of that this doesn't matter what we produce, it's almost like the outcome of it which is more important?
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate that we have a brand that makes heroes of people. And everybody that's on this session today can probably tell me when they first got to meet the blue and yellow can with a little red top. A lot of them met him at their grandfather. I'll tell you a story. It's not often you get a letter like this, but I got a letter the other day from someone who said, you won't remember me, however. And it was a guy who'd heard me speak at a conference a couple of years ago where I challenged them around, if they're not happy in their job, find somewhere that they can be happy. Anyhow, he left his job, found a new one. He was very happy, and he told me about the day he was driving home in his car with his 10-year-old daughter, and they picked up a can of WD-40. And when they got home, the daughter and he were fixing their bicycles, because now we're in pandemic time and they wanted to ride the bicycle. And he said to the daughter, can you smell that? She said, yes. She said, you will always remember that smell, because you will remember the day that both of us came together and created a memory of fixing our bicycles together. Now, I can tell you thousands of stories about people who, I'll get on a plane or I'll go somewhere and they'll say, what do you do? I sell WD-40. The first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I remember when. And they'll tell me the story, and they'll know the person they were attached to, and they'll know how it made a hero of them.
And it's very, very aligned, I guess, with the philosophy I've had for many years, which is to utilize the touch points to almost nail down a memory. I mean, I wrote a book many years ago called Brand Sense, where I realized that the sense of smell has a profound impact on how we store our memories in our brain. And that's exactly what you're talking about here. Now, I want to just drive that towards another question, because I do know that you talk about your staff as tribes, and you talk a lot about memories. And I just want to frame this for a minute or two before I ask you the question. First of all, take a look at this.
I think values are the banks of a river, because with the banks of a river, it takes the water from the mountain to the sea. And without those banks, that water would be a stagnant pond where nothing grows. So our values in the organization are there to keep people centered in that journey from the mountain to the sea.
Now, when I look at that, I'm thinking to myself, how do you onboard people into your religion? And I'm calling it religion, that's my word, right? But how do you onboard your team? How do you maintain that feeling of tribe in your company?
Well, think about a couple of the attributes of a tribe. And part of my tribal cultural theory goes back to studying the indigenous people of Australia and the Fijian Islanders. So if we were to go back thousands of years and observe some indigenous Australians sitting in the middle of Australia near Ayers Rock, what would we see? We'd see the tribal leader there teaching the young tribe members to throw a boomerang. Why? Because the boomerang was the tool of survival. So the number one responsibility of a tribal leader is to be a learner and a teacher. The second attribute are the values that I was just talking about. And, you know, values are there to set people free. You know, I love when you talk about in your new book about, you know, stupid policies. And why do people have stupid policies? It's because they don't have a set of values that set people free to be able to make their own sensible decisions. So that's something that's really, really important. Other attributes of a tribe are celebration, being future focused. That's one of our tribal elements, is to be future focused. Now, fortunately we were, because a couple of years ago, we said we need to invest in raising our digital IQ. And we did. And then COVID hit. And thank goodness that we had invested in both talent and treasure. So if you come to work at our company, if you go to our careers page, the first thing that pops up is these are our values. If you are aligned with these, you're welcome. If you're not, don't call us. And 97% of our employees, our tribe members globally, say they believe their values align with the company's values. So our values attract the people we want. 98% of our tribe members globally say, I love to tell people I work at WD-40 company, so they're attached. These are the things that are really important to us.
Beautiful. You guys have something I never heard any company have before. I just want to share this clip with you.
But our Maniac Pledge really is our permission. And our Maniac Pledge is this. It's on our values card. We talk about it in onboarding, and it says, I am responsible for taking action, asking questions, getting answers, and making decisions. I won't wait for someone to tell me. If I need to know, I'm responsible for asking. I have no right to be offended if I didn't get this sooner. And if I'm doing something others should know about, I'm responsible for telling them. This is the WD-40 Company Maniac Pledge. This is the pledge we take to support our people and to support the real essence of being accountable.
Beautiful stuff. I mean, seriously, do people do that really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In our offices around the world every day, people would walk in, or now on a Zoom call, Maniac Pledge, I need to know, or I know something. See, there are 4 pillars that an organization needs to stand on: care, candor, accountability, and responsibility. What is care? Care is about empathy, right? It's when empathy eats ego instead of ego eating empathy. That's the number 1 pillar. Number 2 is candor. No lying, no faking, no hiding. I believe most people don't lie. I believe most people fake and hide because of fear. Next one is accountability. What do you expect from me, and what do I expect from you? And are we going to hold each other accountable? And the 4th one is responsibility. And that's where the Maniac Pledge comes in. This is our pledge of responsibility to each other.
I do know what, I'm in awe, I have to say, because I've worked with most of the good brands across the world and still do, and it's very rare I see a company like you just getting it. I have a question from Perlham from Montreal. He says, when does it require removing someone who is not able to fit into this tribe? Just share with me, what do you do? How do you massage them to become part of it? And how do you align them over time? And how do you flip them if they don't fit into this mindset?
Yeah, we have a word for that. We call it sharing them with a competitor. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one.
It comes down to our what I wrote about in the book with Ken Blanchard, which is, we're not here to mark your paper, we're here to help you get an A. So let's describe what an A looks like. And then in our organization, we don't have managers. There are no managers. Everybody is a coach. And the coach's job is to help that person get an A. Now, going through that process, it becomes clear if someone's not getting an A, is it competency or is it fit? And we can have those open discussions. And as our friend Alan Mullally would say, it's okay. It's okay if you don't fit here. And we want people to be happy going home. And if someone's not happy in their role, then we want to help them move on to their next place of happiness with respect and dignity, because that's what's so important.
When you say our friend Alan Mullally, of course, Gary's thinking about Alan Mullally, the former CEO of Boeing and of Ford. And literally, when you say what you're saying, I can still see Alan walking around in the audience, and he just takes people on the shoulder. He has such a calm personality. He takes people on the shoulder and he says, it's okay. If you don't fit here, you don't fit here. And I can just imagine if he would do that with me, I'll just disappear, I think, from the world. Crazy stuff. I just want to say a shout out to Adam, to Daniela, to Andrew, to Marlon, to David, to Marbel, to Oliver, to Daniel, to Alex, to Lean, to Khalif, to Alejandro, to Khasheva, and to a lot of other people watching you, and I think watching you in awe. And what I want to just ask you about is stupidities. Those two things you said to me. First of all, empathy eats ego, which comes back to, the spiel I talked a lot about in the Ministry of Common Sense, that we need to bring back empathy, the ability to see the world from another point of view and to feel what another person is feeling. And remember, there's a correlation between empathy and common sense. The more empathy, the more common sense we have, which really is your philosophy. However, you told me that you haven't created a Ministry of Common Sense, but you created something called the stupidity policy. Just remind me about, what is this thing?
Yes, it's interesting. As I was reading your book, which I really enjoyed, and many years ago, we created the Stupid Policies program, where we went out to our people and we said, tell us all the stupid policies we have in the company. And they did. And we worked out two things. Either the policy was stupid and we didn't realize it, or we hadn't done a good job of really looking at what the value of doing that was. So it's not just telling people what to do, but asking the question, why are we doing that? What value is that delivering? And we had a lot of fun doing it. And, we threw out a lot of things that were not worthy of doing. But the question is, why are those there? And again, it comes back to, if you don't give people the freedom to make decisions based on the safety of a clear set of values, you need all these stupid, dumb policies, because they have to quack their way up the hierarchy to get an answer. You talked about it in your book. Yeah, we can't do that. It's not our policy. Quack, quack, quack. I have to ask my boss. Quack, quack, quack. And then you get to the King Mallard, the big dog. Quack, quack, quack. And it's because we're not giving people freedom. It's because this guy, Al, the soul-sucking CEO, as I call him, who wants to have all the power and say you have to quack up the hierarchy.
But help me here then to understand, if I take this lady I met at this huge bank, the head of compliance with her 1,000+ rules, where did it go wrong? These guys will justify that behavior through compliance, which is a really nice cushion you can lean up against and use as an excuse. Where is it's derailing in those organizations?
I think it gets back to ego and power and just plain, as you say, common sense. I mean, fancy saying they still have to fax something when we don't have fax machines anymore. Like, duh? Like, who's not asking that question? Or is the circle of safety, the trust in the organization so low? Why couldn't she walk into whoever's the responsible person and say, this is absolutely stupid? Why would we want to do this? Why are we? What's the why behind the what is what's important.
Do you see this as an issue which is growing across the world? I mean, I remember the other day a friend of mine told me that they are tracking how much they're moving their mouse when they're sitting in front of Microsoft Teams. So if they're not moving it for 7 minutes or 9 minutes, I can't remember the number, then there'll be a yellow flag appearing at the manager's desk. And if they're not moving it again for another 7 to 9 minutes, there'll be a red flag. So first of all, people are now installing apps which are bypassing this so they can run down to the kiosk and buy stuff within the 40 minutes of freedom they have. But it also kind of explains for me or tell me an indication of that we live in an increased rule-based society where algorithms and AI seems to almost take our lives out of us and leave us as a side note rather than us running the show. Is that a concern you're sharing?
So let's go back again to my question, Martin. Why is the mouse not moving? The mouse is not moving because that person is not within an organization where they believe they're making a contribution to something bigger than themselves. They're doing worthwhile work, not busy work, but worthwhile work. They're being recognized and applauded for what they do. That's why that mouse is not moving. It's because they're not engaged. That's the whole problem. It's because we've created a toxic culture. See, culture equals, here's my equation. Culture equals, parentheses, values plus behavior, close parentheses, times consistency. So what does that mean? Again, to have a great culture, you have to have a compelling set of values that set people free and give them a safety zone. Behavior, you've got to love your people enough and be brave enough as a leader, not only to applaud them and reward them when they're doing great work, but to redirect them when they're not, to help them get an A. And you have to do it consistently, day after day after day.
You've been there for 34 years. I'm sure you through that ride would have had not just ups, but also downs. When did you feel you lost control of the company or lost control of the tribe, or there was cracks, not crack, but cracks happening in the system where you felt, whoa, there's something happening now here. Tell me about if there's such an instance and what you did to get it back on track.
Well, I don't think I've ever lost control because I don't think I've ever been in control. Control is not a word I go for, and I often say I'm consciously incompetent. I'm probably right and roughly wrong, or roughly right and probably wrong in most situations. But I think the thing that I really do pay a lot of attention to is our culture. And, what we need to do is to make sure that if you think about culture in a petri dish, okay, when we were at school, we got a petri dish and we put stuff in it and we grew culture. And what did our science teacher tell us to do? Watch the dish, because toxins will start to form. And if you don't remove the toxins quickly, it will completely pollute that culture that you're growing. So one of the thing that is really always top of mind is try and not let the toxins in, but if they get in, get them out quick. And that will continue to maintain and build the culture over time. Now,
what is the first, sorry for interrupting you, but what's the first sign you typically see where that poisoning thing is happening?
Ego. It's all about me.
And ego, you said that empathy eats ego.
It's a leader fails when ego eats empathy instead of empathy eating ego.
Yeah.
And when it's all about me.
Yeah.
It's not all about me. It's all about how do we come together to build a culture where people are making a difference. Because selling oil in a can, Martin, is pretty boring. But creating positive, lasting memories by solving problems is not boring. We're in the memories business. At the end of the day, that's all we have left. You know, life's a gift. Don't send it back unwrapped. Let's get it unwrapped and enjoy it.
Now, a last question. Of course, you are welcome to ask any questions as well. I feel I'm hammering you with questions, and I apologize for that. But I think I've seen in a lot of organizations, there's this phenomenon, which I call the frozen middle, in particular when you have organizations with 100,000 staff or more. It's this forgotten type of layer which is sitting on the key to the kingdom somehow, but they're not valued, and they are paralyzed. They typically are cut down to the bone. And management are sitting in the top, parading orders down in the system, and they kind of just peel off at the central. So they believe, management, that this is running perfectly, and in reality, the ship is just not changing direction. With this, of course, using your philosophy, it's pretty obvious that there is no bigger vision here. There is no bigger purpose in life for that center part. But how would you go in and repair that if you have an organization of 100,000 staff and there's literally 30 or 40,000 people sitting there without a purpose? Where do you start when a company has been around forever and really you just, I mean, what's the starting point?
The first thing you do is you get what I call bleeding tongue syndrome. You bite your tongue and open your ears. And, you know, how do you create great products? You listen to the consumer. How do you create great companies? You listen to the people. So the first thing would be to listen to the people and find out what is paralyzing them around that at times. I think that's where the answer is. The answer lies within the organization. And it's, are we as leaders setting the people free to do great work or not? And I think that's where the answer is.
Beautiful. Well, it couldn't have been said in a better way. Garry Ridge, what an amazing person you are, and you can only be proud of the work you've done. I just want to say to all of you guys watching and listening that Garry also is the co-author of Helping People Win at Work, a business philosophy called Don't Mark My Paper, Help Me Get an A. And Garry, of course, is the CEO and chairman of WD-40. Thank you, Garry, for joining me on my show.
Thank you so much, and I wish everybody a great life.
Thank you so much. And listen, for all of you guys listening, everything you probably have seen right now makes perfect sense. There's just one issue. Common sense is not that common. Now, tomorrow I'll be out on another show. I hope you'll join me. In the meantime, just send a lot of notes and comments and spread the word, because I think what Garry shared with us is for the world to learn from. Take care and bye for now.